Demai, and we are on Dalad Gimel.
Yeah.
You have recording? Okay, good. Reb Eliezer says one need not designate Maisa'ani of Demai, but the comments say he designates it but need not separate it. If one designated Truma Maisa of Demai and Maisa Ani of definitely untithed produce, he may not take them on Shabbos. If a priest or a poor person were accustomed to eat with him, they may come and eat, provided that he informs them. And if one says to one who is not trustworthy in regard to Maestris, buy from me from one who is trustworthy, and from him who tithes, he is not to be trusted. From so and so he is trusted. If he went to buy from him and he said to him, I did not find him and I bought for you from another who is trustworthy, he is not trustworthy. He is not trusted.
Yeah. Okay. Vav hanichnas le'ir. So a new guy turns up in town. Ve'eno makir adam sham. So you've got a chaver who goes to another city and he doesn't know people there. Amar mikan neman mikan maaser. Who here is trustworthy? Who takes maaser from their produce? Amar lo echad ani. Yeah, I do. Eno neman. He's not believed regarding himself. Right? Amar lo ish ploni neman. Hareze neman. But he says Yosila at the end there, he's trustworthy. So we say, okay, that's accepted, and we give you this leniency because you're a stranger in town, and like what else are you going to do? The best you can possibly do is find somebody who can tell you that somebody else is trustworthy. Halach likach mimeni. So he goes to Yosela, and Amar lo mi kan moche yashan. And he says, thanks very much for your produce. I'm now also looking for some good old wine. And it's probably there are some Mepharshim who noodle with the idea that maybe this Yashan is talking about produce that's not Chadash, that doesn't have the Isra of Chadash. But there are a number of issues with that which I won't go into right now. We're just going to say for our purposes that he's just asking who sells good wine around here. Amar lo misha shelachach etzli, the guy who sent you to me. He's a wine merchant. He's really good. Even though it looks like there may be some sort of conspiracy going on here,
Right.
that each one talks up the other one. Nonetheless, in this circumstance, we are allowed to believe them. I think the most obvious reason is because how could they predict that the guy who goes to buy the vegetables is then going to ask about where can he buy wine?
Right.
Okay, but mostly, but also the fact is that you have a guy who's in a b'diavad situation. He's traveling and he doesn't know his way around. So how else is he supposed to get his way around? Anyway, however, this is a case. The next Mishnah gives a case of Gomlin where we don't trust people. Chamarim. Now it turns out that travelers themselves are merchants. You've got two donkey drivers who bringing their wares from city to city. They come into the city. Amar echad. So the first guy says, Sheli chadash v'shel chaviri yashan. He says, my wine is still quite new, and it's not, or my produce is quite new. So it's still fresh and hasn't had a good time to dry out. The dried grain is better than the fresh grain. So yeah, buy from my buddy over here rather. Sheli eino mesukan v'shel chaveri mesukan. Oh, my produce is still tevel, but he's taken Trumas and Masters from his. Einan nemanim, we don't believe them. Why? Because they're traveling from town to town. They probably take it in turns to
Right.
talk up the other guy's produce at the expense of his own. You know, it's kind of like the story of there's an old joke of the priest standing by the steps of the Vatican. He's holding a tzedakah box in his hand, and at his feet is this old Jew who's also holding out a tzedakah box. and so all these pilgrims and whatever, all these Catholics are walking past and very pointedly putting large amounts of money in the priest's tin and ignoring the old Jew and occasionally putting maybe a small coin into his box, and they're just loading like very pointedly putting large amounts in the priest's tin. And the um, the some Jewish tourist comes past and sees the old rabbi and says, like, "What are you doing here? Why are you embarrassing yourself?" And it's a busha to be Jewish and watch this happening. That these guys are being mazalzel in you, they're making fun of you, and uh, and the old Jew looks up at the priest and says, "You hear that, Moshe? He's telling us how to run our business."
I thought that was coming. Very good.
Yeah, so that's Gomlin.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Okay. Halokech min hanachtom ketzad hu maaser. So if a person buys from a baker, okay, that is bread that is demai, that he has to separate from it. He now has to separate um, not only the masters, but he also has to separate challah. Okay, so just practically speaking, how does he do this? Notel kedei trumas maaser v'challah. He takes out enough to cover both the trumas maaser and the challah portions, and puts that on the side. So you got a lump of dough over here that's ultimately all going to wind up going to the kohen. But at the moment, it's all still tevel or demai. Part
Right.
of it, partially demai. Okay. V'omer echad mimea mima sheyesh kan harei betzad ze maaser. So he points at his lump of dough that he's put aside and said, so 1/100th of what's in this pile over here, that is now maser, and the rest of the maser, shar maser samuch lo, and the rest of the maser. So basically, the remaining 9/100ths is on the side of the dough closest to it. Okay, ze shasisi maser, and this part that I've made maser, asoi chumas maser alav. So now that is now called chumas maser. So now on your lump of dough, you've got a piece of it which is equal to 1/100th of the whole mix, which is now officially chumas maser. Shar challah, and the rest of it is declared to be challah. Okay, that's the rest of that lump of dough. So
Right.
now between the two, you've got a mixture of trumas maaser and challah, which basically have the same din as far as the kohen is concerned. Maaser sheni b'tzfono, and then he separates out the maaser sheni from the north of the produce, or bedromo, umechulal ala maos, and he redeems it onto the money. And of course, if it's maaser ani, then what does he do? Nothing. He doesn't. Well, I mean, he just has to declare it, but he doesn't have to redeem it because it's demai. And
Right.
if it's demai, then the ani has to prove that it's magir to him. Okay. Yeah, there's a huge arichos in the footnotes of Gehati where he's bringing some lamdas into it, but I think we're going to leave that out. Okay.
Okay.
Peah ches vav.
This measure applies to the priests, Levites, and Israelites. If he wants to save, he takes half and gives half. If he had a small quantity, he places it before them and they divide it among themselves. They do not give a poor person who wanders from place to place less than a loaf worth of a punyan when 4 saz cost a selah. If he stays overnight, they give him a night's outfit. If he stays over the Shabbos, they give him food for 3 meals. He who has food for 2 meals may not take from the tambu, the
Tamchoy.
tamchu, food for 14 meals. He may not take from the chuppah, and the chuppah is collected by 2, and it's distributed by 3. So he doesn't take from the soup kitchen, and he can't take from the tzedakah. Let me see this. He who possesses 200 zuz may not take lechet, shecha, peah, or masa ane. If he had 200 less than one, then even 1,000 to give him together, he may take. If they were mortgaged to his creditor or to his wife's ketubah, he may take. They do not compel him to sell his house and utensils.
Okay, so when qualifying as an ani, you don't have to liquidate all of your assets.
That's it.
Okay. Right, brachas base.
One recited who creates the fruit of the soil. Over fruit of a tree, he has fulfilled his obligation. If over fruit of the soil he recited who creates the fruit of the tree, he has not fulfilled his obligation. If over all of these one said, but by whose word all things exist, he has fulfilled his obligation. Over such things as do not grow from the soil, one says, by whose word? Over vinegar, over unripe
Shackle.
fallen fruits, and over locusts, one recites, by whose word?
That's
Over milk,
shackle. That means shackle. Yeah.
over milk, eggs, and cheese, one recites by whose word, which is shakol. Rabbi Yehuda says no blessing is recited over whatever is the nature of a curse. If many varieties were placed before him, Rabbi Yehuda says, excuse me, Rabbi Yehuda says, if one of the seven is among them, he recites a blessing over it. You can come and say he blesses over whatever he wishes. Okay. All right. I'm doing for now third or fourth time. I'm doing this Bea with Beta with my Carusa, in New York. This one section I just can't get. I just can't. He made diagrams and all kind of stuff.
You're doing Gemara Beta or Mishnah?
No, Gemara. So the whole conversation between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel about smicha with an ola and with I just forgot the word went out of my head. You know what I'm trying to say. With
Yeah,
ola
when doing smicha on Yom Tov.
you have to write smicha on ola and a I can't believe this.
Shlamim.
Shlomin, right? You have Shlomin on Yom Tov and Shabbos. This some mix up there. So when we finished yesterday, he said to me, "Okay, we're getting this. Now we're going to go to the hard part." So I said to him, so I said, "Okay, I'll review this again this week." It's like 3 weeks we're doing this part. I can't just can't.
It's okay. You'll have greater simcha when you finally cracked it.
Can't get my head wrapped around it. What is meant by a virgin? Any girl who had never discharged blood in her life, even if she is married. Regarding a pregnant woman, her time suffices for only from when her fetus becomes noticeable. Regarding a nursing woman, her time suffices for her until she weans her child. If she gave a child to a wet nurse, or she weaned him, or he died, Reb Meir says she conveys tumah retroactively for 24 hours, but the Chachamim say her time suffices for her. What is meant by an old woman? Any woman for whom 3 periods have passed near her old age. Reb Eliezer says any woman for whom 3 periods have passed, her time suffices for her. Reb Yossi says a pregnant woman and a nursing woman for whom 3 periods have passed, their time suffices for them. And regarding what did they say that her time suffices for her? With regard to the first discharge of blood, but with regard to the second discharge, she conveys tumah retroactively for 24 hours. But
if she returns to her original status, but once she has discharged blood once, then that heter it disappears for the next one.
But if she experienced the first discharge as a result of an external stimulus, then even for the second discharge, her time suffices for her.
Kalim.
Okay. Hey. Regarding a chicken that swallowed the sherets and then fell into the airspace of an oven, that oven is tahor, but if the chicken died, the oven is tameh. If a sheret was found in an oven, the bread that is in the oven becomes a sheni latuma, for the oven is a starting level of tuma.
Right. So just to remind you of this, the chicken swallows a dead sheret, so now it's completely surrounded by the chicken, and if the chicken now wanders into the oven, it's insulated because you've got a living bird around around the thing. But if the chicken dies inside the oven, then it no longer insulates, and the sherets is what's matame. Now you could ask the question, why isn't the chicken matame the oven?
Mm-hmm.
Because the tumah of birds is not the same. The tumas nevela of a bird is only by swallowing it in the base of blia. It's not matame by touch or by airspace. The only thing that changes when the chicken dies is that it no longer insulates against the dead sherets that's inside it.
Regarding a leaven container that is surrounded by a sealed cover and placed into an oven, If leaven and a sheretz are in it, and the dividing wall is between them, the oven is tamei, but the leaven is tahor. And if there was an olive vine piece from a corpse, the oven and everything in the house are tamei, but the leaven is tahor. If there is an opening in one tefach, everything is tamei. And regarding a sheretz that's found in the eye of an oven, or in the eye of a stove, or in the eye of a chupak, from the inner edge and outward, the oven is tahor. And if it was in the air, even if an olive vine of a corpse was in the eye, the oven is tahor. And if there's an opening of a tefach in the eye, everything is tamei.
Right. Okay, Babasha Vav Zayin.
If someone had a public thoroughfare passing through his field and he appropriated it and gave them another one on the side, what he has given is given. But this has not become his. A private path.
So he messed himself up over there. You can't unilaterally seize a piece of public property and say I'll swap it with my piece of property, and that's fair is fair. No, what he's given, but we don't allow him to take possession.
A private path is 4 amat wide, and a public path is 16 amat wide. And the king's thoroughfare has no limit, and the path to the grave has no limit. A halting place, the judges of Zipporah said, an area of 4 kavs. If one sells a place to another to make a catacomb for him on it, and similarly, if one accepts a contract from another to dig a catacomb for him, he makes the inside of the crypt 4 amat by 6. He opens 8 recesses into it, 3 on each side and 2 on the opposite side, and the recesses must be 4 cubits, right, 4 amat long, 7 handbreadths high, and 6 handbreadths wide. Reb Shimon says he makes the inside of the crypt 6 amat by 8 and opens 13 recesses into it, 4 on each side, 3 on the opposite side, 1 to the right of the entrance and 1 to the left. He makes a courtyard at the entrance to the crypt 6 by 6, sufficient space for the bier and those who bury it. He opens 2 crypts into it, 1 on each side, and Reb Shimon says 1 on each side of its. 1 on each of its 4 sides. Reb Shimon Gamliel says all according to the nature of the rock, and they have all these diagrams here, which
Yes.
So okay.
I've also got the diagrams in the Kahati even.
Right. Was that 3? 3.
No, one more.
More. If one said to another, I am selling you a base core of earth, and it contained crevices 10 handbreadths deep or rocks 10 handbreadths high, they're not measured with it. If they were less than this, they are measured with it. If he said to him, I am selling you a base core of earth, even if it contained crevices deeper than 10 handbreadths or rocks higher than 10 handbreadths, they are measured with it.
Okay.
Okay, we are on Tet. He then comes to his ox, and his ox was standing between the antechamber and the altar, its head to the south and its face to the west. The Kohen Gadol stands to the east of the ox, facing west, and he supports both his hands upon it, and he confesses. He would say the following: I beg of you, Hashem, I have acted wickedly, rebelled, and sinned before you. I and my household. I beg of you, Hashem, forgive now the wicked acts, rebellions, and sins, for I have acted wickedly, rebelled, and sinned before you. I and my household, as written in the Torah of your servant Moshe, for on this day he will atone for you. And they answer after him, blessed is the name, the glory of his kingship forever and ever. He then comes to the eastern part of the courtyard, north of the altar, the deputy Kohen Gadol to his right, and the head of the family to his left. 2 he-goats were there, and a lottery box was there in which two lots. They formerly had been a boxwood, but Ben Gamla made them of gold, and they used to lard him. Ben Cotton made 12 spouts for the laver, and for it formerly only had 2. He also made a machine so that its water should not become unfit by remaining overnight. King Mamba has made all.
That is the water wheel. Basically, he built a water wheel underneath the kior.
King Mamba has made all the handles of the utensils used for Yom Kippur gold, and Elena, his mother, placed a golden candelabra over the entrance to the holy. She also made a golden tablet upon which a section of the Torah of the suspected adulteress was written. Nicanor, miracles happened to his stores, and they used to laud him.
Right, we know there's the famous story of Nicanor and the door that fell off the ship.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. What do you want to do about tomorrow, Rosh Chodesh?
Well, Rosh Chodesh, let you know when I'm done.
Oh, okay, all right, but I might probably be between 8 and 8:10 or something like that. I would imagine that will start. It'll be later.
Don't think that late. Don't think that late. I
No.
mean, we may be sort of 5 to 8 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Shabbos is 3 Sefer Torahs, I think.
Yes, Shabbos is 3 separate Torah,
Three
correct.
Torahs, so yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll be ready 7:45. Whatever we have, we have. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.